Before I get into the review, I just want to say thanks to everyone who is subscribing and watching what I assume is the Gran Turismo 4 review. I know that I haven't been uploading for the past 3 weeks or so, and that's because I had to delete all 23 minutes of the voiceover due to a corruption. But anyway, hopefully this time it will work. The first Test Drive Unlimited was a really good game, and it revived a dead series. Not only that, but it kept Atari and Eden Games in business. I thought that even though it had a lot of bugs, it was the only game of its kind. Yes, the Need for Speed games moved to an open world whilst Test Drive Unlimited was in development, but Need for Speed Underground 2 and Most Wanted didn't have 1600 kilometers of roads to drive on and highways where you could do over 250 miles per hour for long periods of time, which was needed as you had to drive to every location that wasn't unlocked. The map might have been absolutely massive, but a lot of it wasn't accessible due to there being a lot of mountains. The vehicle list was also relatively big as it had 125 vehicles, which I did say was quite small in the review, but then I was comparing it to Gran Turismo 4 and Forza Motorsport and not Need for Speed Most Wanted, which I should have done. Out of those 125 vehicles, about 7 of them were bikes, and there weren't that many ordinary cars. The game was supposed to be a sort of rich person's playground, but it did need a few more classless cars, such as hot hatches. But it did have the Audi A3 and the Volkswagen Golf R32. Reviewers in 2005 also really liked the game, as the Xbox 360 and PC versions mainly got 8s out of 10, but the PlayStation 2 and portable versions mainly got 7, and that was probably because of the shocking differences between the two versions of the game, such as car manufacturers and avatar customization missing from the Sony ports. I don't think that was because of any limitations of the consoles. It was probably to help sell the Xbox 360, which had just been released. At E3 2010, Test Drive Unlimited 2 was announced and was later released on PC, PlayStation 3 and the Xbox 360, which is the version that I'm reviewing. Unlike the first game, Test Drive Unlimited 2 has a story. You start the game by being gifted a Ferrari California from Tess. I will talk more about her in a second. You drive your new Ferrari for a few minutes only for it to all be a dream. Instead of living the high life, partying and driving supercars, you're actually a valet who was caught sleeping in someone's car. That person is Tess, who is a contestant on a TV show called Solar Crown, a reality show all about racing. Because you were sleeping in her car, you make her late for filming. She says that if you get her to the film set on time, then she will make you a contestant on the show, as someone else had dropped out. You buy a used car and you're given a house with a 2-car garage. Well, I say house, but it's just a small caravan. It's a very cringy story that could have been written a bit better, but it's nice that there is one. I usually don't like stories in racing games, but the first game felt a little bit empty without one, so it does add something to the game and was at least written around cars and racing. It's not like other racing games such as The Crew, where it seems to be an adaptation of a crime drama where the car aspect was added in after for it to make sense for a racing game. The main way to make money and the main part of the game is the Solar Crown Championships. There is a normal and a hard championship for each car class. The car classes are A1 to A7, P4, B2, C4 and C1. There are also 3 other championships that include more than one car class. Overall, Test Drive Unlimited 2 has 25 championships spread out across the 2 islands of Oahu and Ibiza, so it will take you quite a while to get through them all. There are a few things that I don't like about the championships. I don't like that most of them are on Oahu, as that was in the first game and it would have been nice to have a reason to spend more time in Ibiza. I also don't like the small amount of money that you get for winning all of the championships. After winning the Hawaii Area 2 Cup, I had just under $11 million. That is a lot of money in other racing games such as Gran Turismo, Need for Speed, or Forza Motorsport, but a huge aspect of Test Drive Unlimited 2 is car collecting, and that $11 million isn't enough for every car in the game. That is made worse by the fact that you have to buy houses to store those cars as well. In order to be able to do the championships in the Solar Crown, you need to get the licenses. Overall, there are 11 licenses to get, one for every car class. The license tests are all to do with the basics of racing, such as overtaking, accelerating, braking, and taking the racing line. The licenses get harder to complete as you go through the game, but it isn't tedious like it is in some of the Gran Turismo games. One of the things that I don't like about the licenses is that you can't do all of them at once just to get them out of the way. You can do between 1 and 3 of the licenses consecutively, depending on what championships you have to do next. The licenses are easy to complete, and you only need to pass to be able to do the championships. The game was made to be more online orientated, as when Test Drive Unlimited 2 was being developed, there were still 180,000 people playing online in the first game every month, and so the developers decided to make the online experience better for this game. The online aspect of Test Drive Unlimited 2 had a casino, which was something that made the game so unique, and is one of the reasons why the game is a 12+ and not a 3+ like the first one. The servers for the game shut down in November 2018, but there is a mod for PC called TDU World, which will bring back all of the online aspects, but you're still going to be locked out of about 50% of the game on Xbox 360 and PlayStation 3. There are other parts of the game where you can make money, such as the single player challenges. I'm not going to talk about every type of challenge as that will take way too long, but it replaces things like the car delivery and hitchhiker missions that were in the first game. There are some new missions that are a little bit weird, such as Jolt, Adrenaline and Tail. Really, the only one that I think is worth doing is the Convoy Challenges, as you get quite a bit of money for doing them. The challenges have timers on them, and if you don't select it before the timer runs out, then it will disappear from the map. But I think it might reappear at some other point in the game. The single player challenges are a good idea, even though a lot of them are repetitive. But you do come across some strange characters, such as the guy who thinks his girlfriend is doing something behind his back, and that is another reason why this game has a higher age rating than the first one.
I'll never know where she was going.
Originally, I only decided to do the single player challenges just so I could get extra footage of cars driving around whilst completing a part of the game, but they do help with the discovery part of the leveling system, as you drive on roads that you might not have driven on in free roam or in the Solar Crown Championships. The game's leveling system is called TDU2 Level. Yes, I know, a very imaginative name. You have to level up 4 different aspects of the leveling system, which are competition, discovery, collection, and social, and all of that gets added up and goes towards your global level. The game has 60 levels in total, but in 2020 you can't get to level 60 as one of the aspects of the leveling system is online orientated, which is a shame. As you go through the levels, your title changes. You start off with the Inglorious title, and you're supposed to end with the Legend title, which is no longer possible. After about 27 hours of playing, I got up to New Star. The rewards for going through all of the TDU2 levels aren't that good, so I personally don't really see an issue with not being able to get to level 60, and that wasn't something that I was trying to get to whilst playing. The same can also be said for the FRIM. The FRIM is short for Free Ride Instant Money. This is where you can earn money in free roam by basically driving recklessly. The more drifting, driving at high speeds and avoiding traffic that you do, the more money you will earn, but you will lose it all if you hit something like an AI car or a lamppost. You get it from the used car dealer who automatically installs it into every car that you buy. So the FRIM is sort of like the skills points system that you get in Forza Horizon. You don't really earn that much money from it, and you could just race an AI car in free roam and earn a lot more. The racing is a lot better than it was in the first game, and that is mainly because of the AI. Overall in races, the AI are about the same difficulty as they were in the first Test Drive Unlimited. The AI do seem to drive better as they aren't all over the place like they are in a few of the races in the first game, but I noticed that in some races the game would teleport opponents to make them a higher place in a race. There is another issue where the game would let the AI set off about half a second before me. This was also an issue that I had when I played the game on PC a few years ago. So that's an issue that isn't just limited to the console releases of the game. Well, it's not really that much of an issue, as I think I only got third or second once or twice. And it could just be a glitch instead of the game cheating, which were my original thoughts. But it could make the game quite hard for the average player. What could also be quite hard for the average player is finding the wrecked cars. Overall, there are 30 cars scattered around Ibiza and Oahu combined. You get a little symbol appear on the side of your screen which indicates that there is a wreck nearby. The symbol makes a kind of sonar noise, and that noise will go faster the closer you are to a wrecked car. Once you've collected 10 wrecks of the same car, then you can collect a fully restored one at the used car dealer. If you know where the cars are, then it won't take you very long to collect all 30. But I think the developers wanted the player to find them gradually whilst playing through the Solar Crown Championships. There are a few things that makes this game feel different to the first one. One of those things are the police. In the first game, the police would start chasing you if you even looked at an AI traffic car. But in Test Drive Unlimited 2, you have to try and get chased by the police for them to start taking an interest. And when they do start chasing you, then you'll find that it is a lot harder to escape them. Sort of. They start with the roadblocks a lot sooner, and they will also change to faster cars. They also have EMPs and helicopters. I like that the police are a little bit more relaxed when it comes to when to chase you, but they are a little bit too aggressive in chases. It's almost like the police in Need for Speed Most Wanted 2005 when you're on heat level 4. The difference between Most Wanted and this game is that you have 2 minutes to escape the police. The whole police part of the game was an improvement over the first one. The map or maps are the biggest improvement in the whole game. As I've said a few times in this review, Test Drive Unlimited 2 is set on the two islands of Oahu and Ibiza. This means that instead of having 1600 kilometers of roads, which the first game had, Test Drive Unlimited 2 actually has over 3000 kilometers of roads. But I don't think that includes dirt roads. The fact that there are dirt roads means that the map is even more explorable than it was in the first game, which was an issue that I found. It wasn't a huge issue, but an issue nonetheless. There are also a few replicas of racetracks scattered around the two islands, such as Spa and the Nürburgring GP circuit. At least I think it's the Nürburgring GP circuit. When it comes to the quality of the maps, I think Ibiza is better, and that was probably because it was made for this game, and not one that was released 5 years earlier. It seems that the developers put more effort into making Ibiza as well, as it was a bit more detailed than Oahu. Both maps look good, but I think the developers should have added more detail to Oahu, and because of that I preferred spending more time in Ibiza, and is the reason why I only bought houses in Ibiza as well. There are more houses to buy in Test Drive Unlimited 2 because the game has doubled in size. Just like the first game, the only reasons to buy houses is to store cars and buy clothes. You can have a 2, 4 or 6 car garage in the game, but the developers removed the 8 and 10 car garages, so you will end up buying more houses in this game than you did in the first one, even though the car list is smaller. You can also decorate the interior of your houses as well, so you can change things like sofas, chairs, tables, pictures, walls, and the floors. And there are quite a lot of options. But I do wish that we could have been able to redecorate the garages as well to match the house. But other than that, I think it's perfect. The houses aren't the only thing that you can customize, as you can do a lot of customization to your character/avatar. You can go to the plastic surgeon to change every facial feature, and you can make some weird characters. I didn't do any of that at all. The only reason why you're seeing it is because I only did it to show what it's like, but then I reset it straight away. If you play around with it, then you can probably make your character look relatively good, but that wasn't my main focus of the game. You can also go to the hairdressers as well, where you can change your beard, eyebrows and obviously hair, and there are quite a few options which will make your characters look unique. I like that both of these customization options are in their own separate areas of the map, because I did find it a little bit weird that you could change the way that your character looks in the closet in the first game. The character customization doesn't stop there, as you can buy clothes that have been licensed by actual fashion labels. The best thing about buying clothes in Test Drive Unlimited 2 is that there is no separate currency for it, like there was in the first game, so you could spend a lot of money that you get from the Solar Crown on clothes, or you could just spend that money on cars. Without DLC, Test Drive Unlimited 2 only has 75 cars. That's 50 less than what the first game had. If you include DLC, then it's about 85 vehicles, but that is also including 3 bikes, which were missing from the base game completely. Test Drive Unlimited 2 runs on the same game engine as the first one, so porting over the files and getting the cars to work wouldn't have taken that much effort. The thing is, Atari and Eden Games probably couldn't afford the licenses for a lot of the cars that were in the first game, such as the Jaguar XJ220 and the McLaren F1, and that is also probably the reason why Lamborghini is missing from the game entirely as well. Test Drive Unlimited 2 has more modern cars, such as the McLaren MP4-12C, Ferrari 599 GTO and the Aston Martin 177, which are all nice cars, but it would have been nice to have some of the supercars from the 1990s. In fact, the game doesn't have any cars from the 90s at all. The closest you'll get is the 1987 Ferrari F40, which went out of production in 1992, but that was also DLC. Speaking of Ferrari and licensing, there was apparently a really stupid agreement between Atari, Ferrari and Turn 10 Studios, where the 458 Italia was allowed to be in the PC and PlayStation 3 versions of the game, but not the Xbox 360, as it was the cover car for Forza Motorsport 4, which was also released in 2011. If that's true, then that is really stupid, because Forza Motorsport 4 is a track-based game, whilst Test Drive Unlimited 2 is open world, so they wouldn't have been competing for sales at all, especially as Test Drive Unlimited 2 was released somewhat 8 months before. Test Drive Unlimited 2 does have a wider variety of cars, as SUVs, such as the Range Rover Sport and the Audi Q7, were added into the game. These cars are for the off-road events, which were missing entirely from the first one. There aren't as many vintage cars in the game, as cars like the 1969 Corvette and the 1961 Aston Martin DB4 GT Zagato are missing. But there are cars like the Dino 246 GTS and the Mercedes 300 SL, which are a little bit useless in races, as there are cars that are way cheaper and faster, but are still in the same class. There are some new features to do with the cars, as you can use the indicators and put up or put down the convertible roof. Forza Horizon players have been asking for this for years, and yet a game that was released almost 10 years ago has the features that Playground Games, for whatever reason, is refusing to put into their games. The car models look good, and the sound of the cars was improved quite a bit as well. But there is an issue with the Mercedes 300 SL Solar Crown, where the shadows and the reflections seem to be inverted. I've seen this issue a lot, so I know it's not just my game. If you so wish, then you can also upgrade and customize your car as well. Upgrading cars in this game is almost completely different to the first game. In the first game, you upgraded your car in stages, and even though I don't think that was the best way of doing it, it is a lot worse in Test Drive Unlimited 2, because you upgrade the acceleration, speed and braking separately. And you're locked out of a lot of the options for most of the game. The whole point of upgrading a car in games is to make the races easier, so it is very pointless locking the player out of options until everything is done. Other games such as Need for Speed do the same thing, but at least in those games, you have everything unlocked for the last few races. You can also add decals to your car as well, which was introduced into the series with Test Drive Unlimited 2, but it is the most pointless part of the game. You do have a lot of decal options to choose from, but a lot of them are locked. I don't know what it is with this game and locking the player out of things that should have been available from the start. Placing the decals is quite difficult if you have a look in mind, because it all has to be done by guessing where something has to go instead of the game helping you with where to put things accurately with numbers. You also have to pay a lot of money in game to place the decals that you want, and so to make something very unique and good, it will take you hours per car and will end up costing you a lot of money. So the upgrading and customization part of the game is very pointless, useless, expensive and time consuming, and I don't recommend you do any of it. Overall, Test Drive Unlimited 2 is a fun game, but it does have issues, and a lot of them. A lot of the issues, such as the lack of cars, was probably because of a small development budget, and I can't really blame the game or the developers for that. But the fact that a lot of the game was online orientated is very annoying, and because of that, you can't get 100% completion. Yeah, I know the game was pretty much 10 years old now, but it means that there is no replayability in 2020. I do really like the cars that were included, and the maps are massive and quite detailed, but the developers shouldn't have locked the player out of a lot of the game from the start. I think that this is the first game that I've reviewed where I don't know if I should recommend it or not, because even though it is fun and there's a lot of things that make it good, the progression system is terrible and that almost ruins the game entirely. In 2016, French publisher Big Ben Interactive, now called Nacon, acquired the Test Drive IP, and a third game called Test Drive Solar Crown is currently being developed by KT Racing, a division of Kaloton which Nacon also bought in 2018. Even though a short trailer was released, not much is known about the game. We know that it's going to be released on the PlayStation 5 and probably the Xbox Series X/S and PC. We also know that it's going to run on the same game engine as WRC8. It seems that this game is going to carry on where the second game left off, and with a proper development budget and a company that isn't on the verge of bankruptcy, it looks like it's going to be a really good game. Especially as the developers can learn from the mistakes made by Playground Games, Ivory Tower, EA Black Box, Criterion Games, and Ghost Games, who were all inspired by Eden Games with the first Test Drive Unlimited. This has been my review of Test Drive Unlimited 2. This is no doubt my longest review so far, at 4,157 words. But there was a lot that needed to be talked about with this game, and I can't believe that it's almost 10 years old now. If you liked this review, then please give it a like. If you didn't, then give it a dislike, and if you want to see more, then please consider subscribing and joining their Discord server, linked in the description. Goodbye.